Are you ready? What's my name? What's my name? Say Kareem Ali. Say Kareem Ali. You're listening to
Are you serious?
the Hip Hop Debate Show.
Okay, so hear me out.
The official podcast of Kareem Ali. In about 2 seconds, Kareem Ali will begin to speak. Okay, here we go. Kareem Ali, form of Kareem Ali TV. We got another episode of the Are You Serious, the official podcast of Kareem Ali. And today we got
serious?
Are You Serious? And so,
Quite serious.
I got my man, as usual, Slankster Hughes, Slick Vic Low, aka the Lyrical Leviathan, poet, MC, artist, activist, on the show today. And I'm Kareem Ali. And today we're going to be talking about two incredible MCs, and we're going to match them up. We got the Chicago MC, Common, formerly known as Common Sense, and we got the Brooklyn Knight, the Black Dante, Yassine Bey, the mighty Mos Def, putting them together. And Slankston, we're going to talk about who is the better MC as far as overall all the elements of MCing, lyricism, songwriting, album making and construction, live performance, and then we'll get into some things about which is really a wash as far as or a blowout as far as like their acting ability and everything they've contributed to their impact in the culture. And we're talking whole careers, but we're talking prime on prime. And you know what, Slankson? I think I'm gonna go first on this. In about 2 seconds, Kareem Ali will begin to speak. Listen, so we got Mos Def, we got Common, and this is like a very difficult one for me because I generally love both artists. They're two of my favorite MCs. Common goes back a long time. I started hearing Common somewhere in the early to mid 90s with Booming in Your Jeep. The Ship Your Hips while you're pumping in your trunk. You know what I'm saying? Common was known as almost Chicago's Nas because the Resurrection album was almost like a Midwest version of Illmatic. So I have to give Common a lot of props and a lot of respect. But Mighty Mos Def with Black on Both Sides, I consider one of the greatest albums of all time, a classic to end all classics. It's something I still listen to, or not the entire album, at least several songs off of it, even to this day. When I compare both of these guys, it's a very difficult comparison. It's hard for me to really choose a winner, but from a lyrical standpoint, I feel like Mos Def gets the edge to me because some of the depth of what he's saying is a little more intricate than what Common presents. You made this comment when Kweli is, if he glosses over things, he says black stuff, he says surface level stuff that sounds great, but he doesn't necessarily delve deeper into it. So part of me leans towards Mos Def, but I have a lot more to say on Common as you hear me out. But I'll let you go now. What do you think, Common or Mos Def?
I'm not going to answer that question, but hear me out.
Okay.
I'm going to start here. I would like to share with you all my detective story. So in about 1998, I was beginning to really explore the underground of the internet hip hop world. And there were a lot of sites that were talking about, would put their lists of MCs. And around the same time, The Source did a top 50, Blaze did a top 50. Remember Blaze magazine? And it would be all, the usual suspects. You get to your top 10s, you'd have Rakim, Harris, One, Nas, the Fuji Rap. But this one particular underground site, their list was strictly based off of skills and lyrical advancement of the craft and the culture. And this list was full of like underground luminaries and a lot of names at the time who I didn't even know. I could say some of these names and people be like, what the fuck are you talking about, Slick Vic? Who's ADM? Who's Sage Francis? Who is Slug?
That's old names from the past. Sage Francis. Shout out to oh my goodness.
Who is Gift of Gab? What's the Black Militia? These were the kind of names on this list.
Shout out to Gift of Gab.
These were not your stereotypical list. But number one on this list was Common Sense. And this was around this, you know, he was starting to be known as Common at this time because of the whole legal situation with the reggae band.
I could believe it. So this is around 96, 97.
Yeah, and so, but they still had him listed as Common Sense. And they talked about, and this breakdown talked about the Resurrection album. And they talked about how he used multi-syllabic wordplay more advanced than anyone did at that time when that album came out, about his ability to really rhyme and represent the culture. And they had Common Sense, #1, over all of these other.
He was like a jazz MC. He was like a jazz level musician when it came to MCmanship. I'll give you that. Yeah. That's true.
And so that is where I want to start. And the question I have to ask myself is that Common lyrically that much different from the Common of the last few albums? The Common of the album where No ID produced the whole record, I thought was fucking incredible. The Common album that had the single with man, what's his name? Vance Staples on it. I listened to that whole album. The beats weren't my favorite. I didn't think the production was as good as the album with No ID. But if I'm really being fair with myself, with my ears, and I listen to the lyrics, it's very similar to when you listen to, say, Illmatic, and then you listen to like a Nas album from like the early 2000s that is remixed by Ninth Wonder or an MF Doom, and it has the same musicality as the earlier work. You realize the lyricism really has not changed. And so when I listen to that album with Commons, or even with like further back, Finding Forever, or even the latest Common recordings, what I realized is that lyrically, technically, his approach to writing is the same. I think it's more of the other extracurriculars around Lonnie Smith, you know, being the spokesman for like these Science and Verizon commercials.
Are you talking about Rashid?
Acting guy. Yeah, like that guy that like we represent. We see Common as like this other kind of brand that is like often very much a caricature of like a conscious fist in the air black artist. You know,
so you wait a minute. You don't believe that
track.
You don't believe that his writing is you believe that his writing is still as potent now as it was on One Day It'll All Make Sense or Like Water for Chocolate? Because as great as I think Common was, I don't think he is that good anymore. Not on that level. I still like him. I still enjoy his music.
Hear me out. Okay. I challenge you to go and listen to some of those verses from then and some of those verses now or closer to now, and the approach, the tactics, the techniques are very much the same. The music is different, the image is different, you know, and that I think plays into a lot of how people's opinion on him. But if you listen to his verse from the Selma soundtrack song with John Legend, like it's very, very, very strong bars. Very strong bars.
Strong, solid bars.
Strong, solid bars. Very lyrically sound. You know, it's the
are those bars content, like the bars or the Sixth Sense?
I would say the content is the same. The approach is the same. The Sixth Sense bars just have a DJ Premier. And so it
Hands
speaks to our boom bap soul.
No weapon formed against your glorious destiny. I mean, it was a good song. I think Common has definitely changed over the years. I don't know if he's as potent as he was on Like Water for Chocolate. I'm just not sure. Perhaps your point about maybe those were Dilla beats, so maybe I'm viewing it differently, but lyrically it just doesn't seem like, and it may be something changes in a man over time. He may not be the same person that he was then to have that same type of grit. Something feels like it's missing, but the guy's got to be 50 years old at this. He's got to be a good 48, 49, so he's not the same guy he was. But I'll give you this. We're talking about Common in his prime, so you're able to place Common in his prime versus Mos Def at his prime. And if you're saying prime Common was on that level, I would accept that. I don't know if I would say that the Common of now is as good as the Common from the early 2000 period. I'm not sure if I feel that.
I would say that if what we're doing is analyzing overall arc versus overall artistic arc, and then take the cumulative of impact, skill, lyricism, cultural contribution, it makes it a much harder thing to analyze and come to a final answer on than say Prime versus Prime or Now versus Now.
If I said overall, I feel like Common's probably done more than Mos Def in the hip hop realm. He's had
just
more
in
albums.
From a discography.
From a discography standpoint, he's been superior to Mos Def in that way. But if I was to take some of those other things out and match them just with pure lyrical skill, ability, depth, and content, and songwriting, then it's very close. And I may, as I stated, at the outset of this argument, I lean towards Mos Def because I felt like the depth that he delved into lyrically was a little more intricate than the way Common puts it. But in terms of just writing, if we're talking about overall and what they've done, then I bring in stuff like live performance, and I've seen them both several times. I would have to give Common the edge in that arena too. A very entertaining live show. Most being a more artsy person, bases it off of feeling and not necessarily technique and the formula of giving a live show. He did a lot of singing, a lot more singing than I wanted to hear, a lot of talking to the audience about stuff when I wanted to hear. The records, I felt like Common was a much better. Plus, Maimouna Youssef, shout out to Maimouna, was also backing him up as a background singer and as a as an MC as well, because she got up and she always has about 80 bars for the people with her dominating, overpowering hip hop voice. So Common's live show was a superior show to what I've saw most do in the past, even though I enjoyed most of the show as well. So it's other elements that I would give Common overall, but prime on prime, bar for bar.
Three words. Kareem Ali. 3 words.
Gotta say the whole name. It's like a Tribe Called Quest.
Are you serious? I've seen them both live as well.
Okay.
Now, Common has a reputation for having a robust live show. But I've seen the Mighty Most live, and he takes no backseat. I don't know what concert you were at. Maybe he had a cold that day. But the Mighty Most,
I've seen him live, 3 times, and I've even felt Talib was better than Most live.
I guess it's about what aesthetic are you looking at live? Because Most lives to me was like a hip hop Marvin Gaye, you know, and the singing was a plus for me. The singing was a plus because I saw the way he made people swoon with the vocals.
It was a minus for me. It was a minus for I didn't want to hear
that
shit.
Singing in an Umi Saz kind of way is so hip hop to me that when he starts singing, it doesn't stop being hip hop.
Umi Saz was a song that, yes, I wanted to hear that, but he was just randomly singing anything. I don't want to hear that shit. And he wouldn't necessarily do the songs that I thought that everybody wanted to hear. We wanted to hear some of his classic stuff, and he just was doing random stuff both times. Now, when I saw him with Talib, with Pharoah March and Jean Grey, it was a better show.
I guess it depends, too, on what record was out at that time, too. Mm-hmm.
Very true.
I guess it might, too, depend on it, because if you saw him, like, when the new game was out, you might have just got a poo-poo platter of singing galore from Dante Smith, where if you saw, you might have got like the Mighty Most in rare form. Versus if you saw him Black on Both Sides was out, you might have just saw most of them.
Yeah, Black on Both Sides. I didn't see. I saw episodes of. I looked back on YouTube and saw footage of him live then, and that was a lot better than the times where I saw Most. And depending on what record was up, the New Danger was solid. I like the album. But yeah, I saw him around that time, and I saw him a little bit after that, like in the mid-2000s. It just wasn't as entertaining as I had hoped it would be. I mean, it was great, but in comparison to Common was nonstop the entire time. KRS-One, Busta Rhymes level show. It was teetering on that. When I saw him, the energy was high.
Yeah, man, he performs live like a light-skinned Billy Blanks. Like the energy is crazy.
And you wouldn't even expect for him to for it to be that way for him, and with the nature of the type of songs and the music he does. Yeah. I didn't expect it to be that hype. So it really caught me off guard. And he's one of the best I've ever seen live.
I would say Moses live is a lot more akin to a jazz musician live.
Okay.
Like so, it really their live aesthetics are so different. And it's like, it really is like, what are you looking for in the live
That's true.
show.
That's true. I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
Because like it's kind of like seeing Rakim live versus seeing Wyclef Jean live. It's like Rakim's not going to climb up on the rafters of a light fixture
I don't like that.
and start
I don't know if I like that
singing Terror Squad lyrics.
Slankster.
And
Are
the
you
crowd
serious?
I've seen this
Rakim and Wyclef Jean. Rakim's live aesthetic to me, like Nas's, is more about his persona and his mystique and his command and control of the
his
audience
ability to walk back and forth.
Yeah, he doesn't have to do much. But seeing Rakim in 2020, it's not like seeing Rakim probably it was in 1988. The mystique was different. It was like when I saw Rakim in 2006. I don't know if you were at the show with me. You may have seen the show at the Sonar.
I was there.
It was it was literally like the Christ had walked out on stage.
Yeah, that intro music the Kid Capri played, like I swore he levitated.
I mean, it was like, and he threw a towel, and one of my friends flew for the towel like he was a female. So I just couldn't. It was ridiculous.
That wasn't far from me. That wasn't far from me.
So I mean, I could. So Rakim has. So I see what you say with the different. That's different than seeing like a Big Daddy Kane or KRS-One live
or Wyclef Jean at Artscape in 2005. That was the craziest show. Like he's crowd surfed. Like what he did with the guitar, like the sing, how he was pulling in covers of like Tribe songs and Fat Joe songs that were popular at the time. Like it was an all out full body experience, but a completely different aesthetic.
So what I will say, like different artists, as you say, they have different aesthetic of what they're doing live, but I would say from a casual standpoint, or from the standpoint of what's undeniable. If you take a regular fan that's not like a hip hop fan of that person, and you take them to a Common show or a Mo show, I think the regular person is going to connect or be entertained by Common a little bit more. If you're a seasoned hip hop listener and you really like Mos Def, and you liken him to a jazz musician, or you liken him to a Marvin Gaye hip hop artist, then that's something different. You're going to appreciate that more. But if you take two people that don't know anything, from an entertainment standpoint, they're probably going to lean towards Common. Just like you could have someone versus James Brown that has that more laid-back approach, but you're not going to outperform James Brown because the energy is going to be a certain way. That energy is transferable. So because of that, I give Common the edge in a live performance, but it is subjective. Artists
but hear me out. Hear me out. James Brown live is one thing, but you just put John Coltrane with a saxophone by himself, not even a band backing him, and you're talking about two different universes of the same level of excellence on stage.
Yeah, but that's two different genres of music. Common and Mos Def are the same genre of music. For that analogy to
jazz,
work, it has to be it has to be somebody that's akin to James Brown, like a Jackie Wilson or something. Somebody in the same era for me to say.
But if the argument is that Mos Def and Common are not necessarily akin in their performance aesthetic, though.
So but they're artists of a similar generation. Maybe. I mean, give me James Brown versus someone who's more of a laid-back performer in the 60s. In 1965, James Brown was the guy.
He was the shit. 1965, John Coltrane was getting it in.
Yeah, but that's a different genre of music. It's like, comparing an instrumentalist to a singer or dancer. It's not the same thing. Both Common and Mos are MCs and high-level lyricists. So analogies on these strong teachings are similar.
Listen, in that time period, there is no comparison to James Brown on stage.
No. No. And I resent you for trying to bring Michael Jackson was not alive. Well, he was alive, but he was 7.
Yeah, he was
7 or 8 years old.
Indiana getting beat by
he was learning from James Brown. He was learning from James Brown.
He was in Gary, Indiana getting beat by his father.
Right. So he wasn't quite, he was watching James on TV singing the Bend at night. Singing Bend the two of us will love no more.
Very brief digression.
I resent you try to put John Coltrane and subject his greatness. It went to the Coltrane level to win this argument. It was very low of bringing in something totally out of context.
I mean, you're talking about Mos Def. Like, he's the out of context MC inside of the hip hop context.
I love Mos Def. I sided with Mos Def.
How many MCs have you seen go on stage and kill it in a Fez hat? Like, it doesn't get more outside the box.
Only the Kid from Baltimore. That's pretty much it.
I was thinking, yeah, only the Kid.
That's pretty much. Or Only the More, as he's referred to now. Shouts out Only. Yeah, hopefully you'll see this soon. But what is your pick? Are you saying that you think Common with his lyrical technique, which he was like a jazz musician on Resurrection, in the way he would have these run-on sentences, rhyme in the break, pick it back up on the third line.
It was very Rakim-esque in how it married jazz's.
It was unbelievable. He's an unbelievable MC, and so I think people don't give Common the credit he deserves. And the Common disrespect is strong. People have said that he hasn't been an MC since 2003, or
that's why I bring
up, a poet. He's a poet. He's not really a rapper to me. That's what people say. And I vehemently disagree. Common Sense has one of the greatest, most extensive catalogs. And B was a classic, like Water for Chocolate was a classic, Resurrection was a classic, Finding Forever was a great album, close to a masterpiece in my opinion. So when you start talking about likening albums to championship rings, Common has a plethora of things to choose from, along with major singles. So overall,
it's like comparing Rick Fox and Steve Smith. Like, who's the better corner 3-point shooter? Like, one has multiple rings, another, Scottie Pippen and Rasheed Wallace couldn't get him past Jack. But not to digress into the sports fan code.
We always do. Well, hip hop is a sport. Hey man, hip hop is a competitive sport, and so the comparisons work, and we'll use that a lot.
It's a sport of the mind.
The sport of the mind.
So, but again, all those reasons, all those common examples you cite with the various albums and such, is the reason that I presented the first part of my detective story with Common. But let me talk some about Mos.
All right.
You're talking about go back to Black on Both Sides, go back to the Black Star album, and you really listen to those Mos verses. What I realized is that, especially for me at the time, I was in like high school when that stuff came out. His voice, the melodiousness of his voice, often caused me to miss how intelligently laid his lyricism was, how technically brilliant his lyricism was, because the voice was almost hypnotic. If you listen to a great example is the Reflection Eternal song, Respiration. Listen to Respiration, and you listen to Mos's verse, you listen to Common's verse. I don't know. I think Mos might have the best verse between them two.
I thought he did.
Mos, he crushes that. He crushes that song.
They set it up to where they felt like Common was the anchor.
Right, he was the anchor.
And it was a dope verse.
Had a lot
Common
of dope punchlines.
He did. Common was hot at that point.
But if you are just listening to the song without really listening close to what's being said, and Mos is doing the hook, and he's real melodious and singing and stuff, all of that takes such a forefront that you might miss how dope his bars are.
I didn't miss it. Even though I like Talib's performance on that song as well. At that point, those guys were pretty they were pretty close to even MCs. The Respiration joint, that was a beautiful time.
I mean, at the time, Common was looked at as kind of like
the better guy,
big brother of those, of them, because he had been out for a while, and at the time, there was arguments like not just among the underground, but in general, like he's like one of the best.
Was he the best in the world? Yeah.
And so Mos and Talib were they were coming in the door. And so, but if you really listen to Mos's verse, like it's pretty remarkable. And I think that same thing happens a lot when you listen to Mos, is that sometimes you miss just how savage the bars are, because he's doing so much other stuff sonically with his voice that is really dynamic. And if you really want to see Mos, like the human, the live performer, the mind behind the music, there's a really amazing documentary done by Culture TV back in like 2010 that just follows him along his tour in Japan. He's in Japan touring, and they just follow him show to show on the bullet train. At one point, he goes to like a haberdashery, and his DJ gets a purple rhinestone leather jacket with spikes on the back of it, and then Most is like, yo, you look like a gay man. It's like, it's just like the day in the life of like, and at one point he just gives this really impassioned speech talking about basically like, if someone's spirit is strong enough, no force can hold them back. No corporation can hold them back. It's almost like he's kind of tongue in cheek talking about his own label and some of the struggles he went through with trying to get his albums out, because he was trying to push the envelope in certain directions. They were just like, why don't you just do a regular rap album? And that's kind of what led to the New Danger. So we're talking about like creativity and like how outside the box eccentricness as an artist can be a superpower.
So you're saying we have a Common is like a more straightforward MC, traditional, and Most is more outside
in comparison, the box. Yeah, straightforward but advanced for the time that he came out.
He definitely was advanced. There's no question
and
about
Most, that. Very much like an abstract jazz musician, and that he kind of took a different angle and a unique angle that made him stand out in a way that was different from his peers.
So I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Who would you say is better? Who has the edge? Who's the better lyricist? Who's the more advanced writer? Who's the better songwriter?
So you fell on the Most side, correct?
I fell on the Most side, but only barely. I mean, overall career-wise, I think Common has had a better career from a hip-hop standpoint as far as the output of work. But the Most side, because of just as you say, the abstract jazz musician, some of the technical, lyrical things and what he does sonically with his voice, as you stated also before, I think gives him an edge in terms of just having a different approach to his songwriting. So Pop said he was in love when he made me say love, L-O-V, and I-G, the way he was able to and put his vocals into the music. I kind of side with Most, but Common has been a great songwriter as well. He's had some big records. So by the time he got to B and when he started working with Kanye, depending on the level of production he had, it really took him to another level. And the song, with the one he was singing about Erykah Badu, or he had the remix of Erykah Badu, what was the song called?
The Light.
The Light just took him to a whole nother level commercially. And Common, he's able to appeal to women and hardcore MCs and backpackers as well. But Most, I just feel I kind of give a little edge to Most in terms of but they're really, really close. I mean, and putting myself on the spot, maybe I don't know. But
I was going to say that, but I don't think we're allowed to say that. I think we have to have an answer. Put both of our brains to the fire.
I don't know. Part of me wants to go with Common in some regards, but Prime on Prime. But Common's Prime. Oh no, I don't. Common's had.
I might surprise albums. You here.
I'm not really sure.
And I think a lot of listeners at this particular moment in time might say Most, might say Yasin Bey. But this might surprise you, but my final answer is Common.
I'm not mad at the answer.
Not by a large margin necessarily, but not by a super slim one either. I would say personally, my personal taste in music and in hip hop and in lyricism, my personal favorite among these two is Most. But if you ask me the question of who do I think overall cumulative score of all factors is better than the other on a score sheet, I'm going to say Common.
And I can't disagree with that. I said as much myself. I mean, overall career-wise, Common has had the better career. Longevity as far as that. Now, if we go into who's a better actor,
who's a better actor,
that's Most easy. It's a landslide. Common needs work.
I mean, Most Dante was acting like on screen in things before he ever had to deal with Ruckus and before Black on Both Sides or Black Star came out. Like he was in the damn Cosby Mysteries. Like way before that. Like and like his acting skills.
It's superb. It's superb. It's far superior to Common's. Common's ability to act is more so because of his legacy and his image, his status as an entertainer in general. The light skinnedness and the bald headedness that women seem to like nowadays.
He's the same guy in every role.
Every
He
time.
looks at the
We're not
camera.
looking at Chadwick
Says
Boseman here.
things.
Yeah.
The tone doesn't change. It's all very surface level.
I feel like
Ghost has chambers.
I feel like it's not totally fair in a way because Common has a distinctive voice that I just don't think he can do anything with. So no matter what he tries to do, it's going to sound the same. He has improved, in my opinion, as an actor. I just saw him on The Shy and some other things. Yeah. He's trying.
I couldn't get past the joint with him and Queen Latifah. Like that.
Yeah, I enjoyed that movie, actually. I enjoyed that movie, but I know what you mean from an acting standpoint. He just...
Kareem Ali.
What?
Are you serious?
No. But I did enjoy it.
Look,
Everybody did enjoy the movie.
It's not fair, like you say, because Mos was in school for acting before he ever was like signed to a record label.
Will be a compelling conversation.
He really came up through the ranks as
with Mos Def and Tupac, who's a better actor. That would be
that would be
a compelling discussion.
If you've never seen Mos Def in the movie Something That the Lord Made, where he plays Vivian Thomas, the first Black neurosurgeon.
I've seen that. It's unbelievable.
It's incredible. You forget he's Mos Def.
I mean, just even seeing Mos Def play in a series of episodes of Dexter, the serial killer, was interesting to see.
Right, he was totally in Dexter.
He was totally. I mean, he was. And then even seeing him in Brown Sugar was entertaining. That was like watchable stuff.
Saying he didn't even. I don't even think he had a line, but in Ricky Bobby in Talladega Nights, where he's just playing this oddly strange Crip sort of / blood character at the guy's house playing poker or whatever.
He's able to do comedy as well. So when it comes to that, Mos Def by a landslide by almost any other actor, acting rapper not named Will Smith per se, just because the Fresh Prince is ascended to such a level.
I mean, you're talking about character study roles. Like,
well, character study is different. I mean,
about the joint where he played the guy, he had to go it was like 9 blocks or something like that.
Hey, look, I'm not coming against Mos as an actor at all.
Mighty.
I think he's the greatest acting rapper of all time. But I think I definitely have to give credit to the Fresh Prince for the level he ascended to.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about movies. At various times he was like biggest movie star in the world.
In the world, so I can't deny that, and he did an excellent job playing Ali. He did an excellent job playing Ali.
Not quite the same returns or results when he did the concussion doctor.
No, because he couldn't get the accent right. For those who are initiated and have heard that accent, it's not that he did a poor job, but the accent was off, and because he couldn't get that right, it probably took away from the performance from him. But he's a great actor as well. But Mos Def, as far as a character actor, as you say, a method actor, Mos Def would definitely take the crown in that. Musically, it's just, I think the technical detail that he plays to the songwriting and the in-depth approach, I give it to Mos, but I can understand a prime on prime, but I can understand what someone would say Common, because I almost want to go Common as well. And I do think Common overall in his career has had the better albums. Mos had the only 2 albums that I thought was superior was Black on Both Sides. I like the New Danger, but I wanted to hear something more along the Black on Both Sides. So you never gave us that again. I thought Mos Def at that time had a chance to be the best hip hop artist in the world. I thought he was to what Jay-Z was to the mainstream in the early 2000s. I thought Mos Def was to the underground, and I felt like
everyone always says about that time period and that record, and that record like destroyed that possibility at the time. Where for me, I was just like, can't the man just make a record with his own artistic pursuits? And so I was
not when that much is on the line culturally, Vic. Not with that. He could have, if he'd have followed up that album with an album
I've had this discussion a lot of times before, and I'm going to save that for when we do another Mos / question mark. I don't want to say who it is yet because I think it's really compelling. I don't want to bury that lead on that.
I know who it is.
But of course you know who it is, and I know who it is. But I'm gonna I don't want to bury the lead for the audience on that one because I think it's a really compelling matchup. But I would speak more on that particular thing then because I think it ties more into that particular.
So I'm kind of split and not really sure. I'm a stick with Mos, but Common is Even with the live performance, I get it, but
I'm gonna say, "Are you serious?" And I'm gonna counter with, I'm gonna say Common. Yeah,
okay,
and I'm gonna say Common.
I'm
gonna say,
fine with
honestly,
that.
for me, it's not as close as it is for you. I'm gonna say my gap's a little bigger, and I don't know. I would lead with this particular coda of my detective story for both MCs is with Mos. One of his endearing factors as an artist is his mysteriousness, and one of maybe my favorite Mos album, second to Black on Both Sides, I would say is the Ecstatic. And there's a particular
that's another album that I want to mention. Yes.
On that album that I feel like was historical hip hop wise, because on the original version of the album, the song at the Auditorium, the Madlib produced joint did not have listed who was featuring on the track. It wasn't listed. It was a surprise purposely. And then when you get to the middle of the song and you just hear the ruler, and you just hear Slick Rick's voice come in, and it's like, yo, Slick Rick is on this song. And so, like, he does things like that. It kind of is like a hip hop magic trick at times that I think is really dope.
You know what, Vic? Now that I think about it, go ahead, finish your point. I'm sorry. Finish your point.
Well, my common coda is that there were times when he was considered potentially the best on the planet by a lot of people, where I still think he's like at a level that is comparable to that in his techniques as an MC. When I recently, and something we're going to talk about in a whole nother episode, probably a super episode, is that I created my list of 13 microphone gods, and I never even once considered putting Common in that.
Well, there's another glaring omission, as you shared that with me off the air, for the 13 microphone gods that I take issue with a little bit that we'll discuss on the upcoming. You know, I want to say that you may have swayed me a little bit, because as I think about it, just career-wise, if they were to do a versus battle, mostly Common, I think Common's had the bigger records, the more noticeable records. Most of the stuff has been a little more underground and closer to the real culture carriers and the people who are really into hardcore hip hop fans. So it's what you're measuring, but overall, Common has both. I mean, not saying that most doesn't have both, but Common has both to a greater degree. He has the commercial success and he has the underground success, especially early on, from a critical acclaim standpoint, and more classic albums. So I started with Mos. Overall, probably going to have to go with Common as well. Although I think it's a lot closer because of Mos' superior technique, lyrical ability, this abstract approach to rhyming and songwriting. I think it's closer to what you want to have it from that standpoint. If you strip everything away, you say just MC for MC. But overall, when you bring in all the factors of not just writing and not just pure rhyming, you bring in songwriting and album making and live performance on all the chambers and the aspects that go into being a dope and incredible MC. Perhaps Common may get the edge also by 1 cubic meter or a pubic hair, as Kareem Ali likes to say. True. So
yeah, for me it's not. For me it's like at least about the length of a calf muscle.
From a career standpoint, I would agree. From a skill standpoint, I don't. But from a career standpoint, as far as the body of work, I could say a calf muscle. From a skill standpoint, I think it's much, much closer than what you would like to have it. But that's pretty much all we have for this particular episode. Are You Serious? The official podcast of Kareem Ali. Definitely serious. Definitely serious. Slanks to Hughes, Slick Big Low. We'll see you guys next time. Let me stop this recording. Yeah, so that should be it for today, because
so I have to stand here today as what I was when I was born, a black man.
Your racism bounces off me, I'm bulletproof. Your prejudice gets deflected, I'm bulletproof. Your hatred can't penetrate me, I'm bulletproof. Our minds can't be shackled no more, nah, we know the truth. Yeah, from the spot that Malcolm stood.